We are recording.
Okay.
Okay. Is it me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Welcome to the March 10th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting of the Village Board for the Village of Lake Bluff. Clerk, please call the roll.
Member Fisher?
Here.
Member Rappin?
Here.
And Chair Ryder.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. First order of business is approval of the minutes from our February 10, 2025 meeting. Anyone, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, I do have a comment.
Okay,
It's
please.
very minor. I've never said it before, but occasionally my name is spelled with a C, and it is in this one, and I'm just
come on.
Fisher. No
Sorry.
C.
Sorry.
We'll find it. We'll fix it.
That's fairly noted. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion passes. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The Finance Committee allocates 15 minutes at this time for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the committee on any matter not listed on the agenda. Looks like a standing room only crowd. What do we have?
Online.
Shocking. Okay, hearing no interest in speaking to us about non-agenda items, we will move on to item number 4, business items. 4A is review of the Vehicle Equipment Replacement Fund, which I like to call the VERF.
VERF. That's a great acronym.
Bravo.
Oh, right. Do we have a report on that?
Sure. So as included in the packet, basically the biggest expenditures in this fund, other than the purchase of the squad car, which is an annual event, is the list of technology expenses that were included. Particularly of note that are unusual for this year is virtualization of the phone system, migration to 365 for Office, BSNA cloud upgrade, which is the financial software that will upgrade to a cloud version, so no longer need a VPN in. You can remote in or just log in through a website once we get that migrated. And then the computer switches is also a big expense, and the Zoll monitor replacement for the fire department. Most of the other ones are routine. Access control for the public safety center is also a non-routine item that's added on there. That system is pretty antiquated. I don't know what the year is, but it's been
Talking about updating it for years.
it's been 15 plus years. So that server to that system for the doors is about to not be replaceable. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on that list.
The big one obviously the big spike is the fire apparatus, and that's the one that we are working with the department on, trying to identify a realistic plan. It's a placeholder there that you see in the VERF. It's something that I had a conversation with Chair Ryder about this earlier today. The village has found different ways to achieve our objective to have apparatus at the ready to include. Years ago, the village jointly purchased a fire apparatus with the city of Lake Forest, and they housed it and responded to all our calls. It was a great deal. And so, anything is possible at this point, but we wanted to more properly account for the cost of a new apparatus, which is extremely high and takes anywhere to 3 to 5 years for delivery now. So, but we're working with the department. We just wanted to get a plan in place to start paying for what something like that would actually cost. And so we've been saving away, but not enough to meet the current pricing that have really skyrocketed post-COVID. So that's really a placeholder. So that'll get ironed out in the upcoming
Right.
years. Yeah.
As we look to how that
Yeah.
gets financed.
So I wonder if the other expenses, the 448 that are shown on page 7 of 82 of the packet, that is also higher, excluding the saving for the fire apparatus, right?
Yes.
It's quite a list of all of the things that need to get done. I was kind of impressed by just one after another, the items. Would you say that this is typical, that we have a list of 20 technology changes, technology updates that we need to do?
So typically no, it is shorter usually, but this year added on to the end, from right off the bat, are, the costs related to body cams and the LPR imaging technology, and the camera installs to the fire department. Those are new. Some of them are repetitive in nature, and then some of the other items that I went over already. So yeah, typically we have about 10 or 15 items in
Yeah.
this category, and
too
most of them
crazy,
are
yeah.
replacement or maintenance type agreements that are over 5,000, so they sit in the replacement fund. But we have some large things that we're working on this year.
The cloud migration, yeah, being a big part of that.
And you're replacing, one thing I'm looking at that list, being IT background type, you have to buy a VLA SQL server to core license at $9,000. But where is the cost for your server in that list? Typically, you buy a new license when you buy a new server because it's a set license for your equipment. But I don't see the
Corresponding
software-
server.
Corresponding server for that?
Yes,
I'd have to ask. Get you
because
an
if
answer for that.
you're virtualizing, you're sending to the cloud a few other things. I don't
Right.
know why you're buying a SQL Server license behind. Just a side question, it's kind of weird.
Okay, I'll ask and find out.
Because also, but are you saying that you also want to keep stuff racked on the other side?
Yeah,
of the
not
street?
everything is cloud-based, that's for sure.
Okay.
No.
But I wonder if that one needs to be physical here or cloud-based, that's why.
Okay, I'll find out.
Yep, for me, looking at this list, it is a very big list. Relative to annual spend, it's a little bit higher than we've done in the past, but not that much higher, and pretty consistent with what we plan to spend in this area in the next few years. And I really rely on you, Drew, and the team to come up with this list and to know what we need here. Because this is such a technical list, and I'm sorry if I was spacing out earlier, who creates this? Is it our consultants?
Yeah, we work with, yes is the answer. InterDev is our IT consultant, and they're our CIO, and so we work with them to develop this list. Bettina sits down with them and goes back and forth. She has a good feel for our internal network and works with them to make sure that our shopping list matches our needs as we enter the budget year.
Okay, so Bettina, for you being the closest person to this consultant, you feel like you are properly vetted in understanding all of these and have been convinced that this is everything that we need?
For the most part, yes, I would say so, yeah. I mean, we've gone through all this, I went over it extensively with all of them and the needs for what some of those are, and some of the costs have been updated.
Some of this stuff.
Some of the stuff is estimated a little high, I will say that, like, for example, 365, depends on what kind of licenses we get for what tier people, tier 1, 2, or 3, and we haven't determined that yet.
Yeah.
So the cost is just, on the high end, it will be less.
Yeah. I mean, I personally feel so unqualified to be able to vet this list that I'm really
Right.
depending on those.
Yeah,
I understand.
and I would, none of this is a stretch for us, and this is
Yeah.
stuff like, we've been looking at this OS 365 for some time. We actually made a conscious choice a few years ago not to do it, and made an investment in some hardware because it was just more economical for the village, of this organization of our size. But now we're at the point where, okay, now we need to invest in other hardware, or do we make the jump? And so, like, now we're making the jump. So we've been talking about it for a while.
So the 365 license typically has either everything off-premise, or you keep some of the licenses in-house and then use cloud services for storage, OneNote and OneDrive. So you keep those Word and Excel and PowerPoint licenses local, right, on your computer, or everything is on the web. What did you choose?
I think everything's going to go to the web, because we'll have to use Duo to authenticate when we go into the applications,
Okay.
from what I've been told.
My question really is, you'll have a hit in performance on your computers if you lose the web, if you lose access, or you have a slow access, you're gonna have issues working.
Right.
So, I mean, one of the solutions is you have the same licenses, but you keep software on your computer, so you can still work local before everything gets shipped to the cloud for storage and saving your documents and everything else. You have choices.
Okay. Keep it in mind. Yep.
Did anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move to item B, a discussion regarding the capital improvement budget. 4B. And I think that's the memo in your file dated March 6th that goes through a great deal of that explanation. But Bettina, why don't you take us through the high points?
Sure, so as we kind of started to review at the last meeting, included in the packet is the capital improvement plan, which goes through 2 years of, or the last year of the capital fund itself, in which we're including a $500,000 transfer from general. We're including the Green Bay Road reconstruction, the bridge. $1 million is being budgeted for CBD Block 1 pending approval from the board. And there's some birch stabilization work, there's sanitary sewer improvements, the Bluff Road ravine stabilization, and then the Lake Bluff, North Chicago Ped Bridge. I don't know, Jeff, do you have anything I also included all the sheets related to the capital plan that goes over, each of those projects that are on the 15-year summary. Some are not necessarily part of the current budget, but they're on the sheet, so we included information on, what those entail. Also included was the rating scale that gave you an overview of how staff, that being Jeff, the village engineer, rated the projects and the weighted score and the average score for those based on the criteria that we have laid out. That's really all I have.
And I would add that some of these projects that are in here are funded primarily by others. And given what's been happening lately, there's been a lot of hand-wringing over some of these projects going to get funded or not, whether taking funds from the U.S. government that are passed through the state then down to us. And we've been having those conversations with our partners. And as an example, IDOT has advised that the head of programming for our district told me a week and a half ago that they are proceeding, all systems go, that things will be funded. That she said most certainly for things that have already been awarded, for example, the 41176 pump project, that is happening without doubt. There are other big project this year in Lake Bluff is the resurfacing of Sheridan Road, and that's going to be awarded in April. She doesn't believe that won't be funded at this point. And again, they're proceeding at status quo pace, and that's not a big ticket item to begin with, but that's how they're proceeding. And so the idea of those $80-20 that we're getting for the Green Bay Road project's one of those that goes through from the, flows from the feds to the state. So is that in question? Again, right now, to the best of our knowledge, those funds will be there, and that's how we're proceeding. So we know why we would not proceed in that manner, and we're going to continue to communicate. That's how the timing will continue to be on that same pace. And Jeff, you haven't heard anything differently in the last 7 days?
No, every day there's maybes, but there's
Yeah.
nothing concrete that's come
Yeah.
through.
So,
The capital fund balance, we have the chart, and from last meeting, we typically want that to be at least $500,000, like that's the lowest we want it to go. Is that?
capital fund is different. It's not like operations where it's,
Oh.
right, that's going to ebb and flow with what we're doing and how much money we purposely leave there or don't leave there.
I'm thinking of the general fund.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so the general fund, I didn't see that in here, but can you remind me? It's just, what I want to establish is we have a plan here, and I want to establish that that plan does not take us below our threshold of where we want the general fund to be.
It does not.
What?
It
It does slightly.
But not
But
not in the amount that we talked about. It was right around the 50%.
Right, it was like 53% for FY '26 and then 27 based on the projects that we had listed and some of the transfers that were required. I think we were in the high 40s.
And remind me, it was 53% of what?
That's the fund balance?
Year of operating costs.
The year of operating costs. Okay. So the capital plan that we have here reflects, inter transfers. And those inter transfers never get below what our desired thresholds are.
Right.
Okay, so,
I will say it does not get uncomfortable.
No, it doesn't. This is actually the first year, assuming that all the things that we have planned for, come to fruition, that we're getting closer to that fund balance number based on what we've been saving for the Green Bay Road project.
For these specific
And
projects,
For these
right?
specific events that we knew were out in the future several years ago. So that's the reason why our fund balance numbers are running so high to begin with.
Right. The,
The capital fund itself doesn't have those thresholds, so we took these projects that used to sit in the general fund and moved them out and created a capital fund years ago so that
Yeah.
they wouldn't affect the balances that way, and we could just fund the project.
And some of that was too, like, the idea that we created this new stormwater utility fund, which was going to take money from that as well,
Right.
as planned, so.
I can keep asking questions or?
Go ahead.
Okay, so
Please.
the Public Works capital projects, which is a you thing, right?
Depends on the question.
Where-
Oh, it depends on which.
Page are you on?
It's, I'm on the chart, the master chart. just the-
Master chart, which we have in front of us as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
top portion. That's mostly ongoing maintenance, right? That's just, we do the same stuff.
Reoccurring investment in the assets.
Correct. And there's not a lot elective here. And I guess I just like a general opinion, from your standpoint, this looks like a very reasonable plan. I'd like to cross this off the discussion list, just as this is ongoing, regular maintenance that we need to do.
Yeah, I don't think this has changed much from what we've seen in the past year since we did this 2 years.
With the exception of the water fund.
The water what?
No, he means the public works section,
the top
part.
Oh,
The
yeah.
top part, 1 through 16.
Through 16.
Yes.
1 through 16.
Yep.
So I don't have any questions on that, because that looks pretty easy. Can you remind me, the street rehab MFT, there's a couple of big spends throughout the years. Remind me of what that is?
So we use MFT dollars every third year right now. So the street rehab non-MFT, which is item, which one is that one?
It's number 4.
Number 4. So that one we skip every third year. There's a very small amount for some miscellaneous things. And then we use MFT dollars every third year as they pile up.
And what's MFT?
So
Motor-
fuel tax dollars that we've chosen to accumulate over 3-year periods to get economies of scale rather than doing a little bit each year on MFD dollars, so we save it
There's-
and then spend it and do a big road improvement.
There's a lot of extra paperwork and IDOT approvals when you use MFT dollars. So we'd rather than use a little every year and do that extra work every year, we wait till it's enough to do pretty much our whole program in every third year.
So the projects are the same types of projects?
Yeah. Lines
In
4.
line 4 and 17 is just where they're funded from?
Right,
Yes.
I
exactly.
see.
It's all road resurfacing and paving.
And then our last meeting, we did talk about the water distribution system. I remember asking you about that, but I can't remember. I think that's just repairs to the ongoing water system for a very dated water system, and we simply need to make a significant invest in the next few years.
Yes.
And that, yeah. Okay. The storm sewer trunk, I don't have any questions. We've talked so much about that. The first big swath at 3.9, it's on our dime, and then there's going to be bonds for the bigger portion later on.
The 3.9, 2.4 of that is to be reimbursed by the county.
Okay.
They just are making us front it. We just received a
Oh, that's
copy of the IGA last week. We're looking at that,
Reviewed by
probably going to
council.
bring that to you in April for approval. But yeah, that's 1.5 of that is our permanent spend. The 2.4 is reimbursed by the county.
Is that also the case in the out years, 28, 29, and 30, or are those fully funded by us?
There are no other commitments right now.
Do we have
other
our
than
fingers
the-
crossed?
Other than the state has,
The state's saying they're going to pay
Committed.
within the right of way, and the feds, the 750, which is SMC, is used to pay for the design work. But we're pursuing a Protect grant again, as well as other sources. So.
there's an Army Corps
money.
grant that we're going to be applying for sometime soon as well.
So do the out years, 28, 29, and 30, presume some contribution from others, or are those worst-case scenario numbers? Seems to me they're probably presuming we get some,
30 are, they could be partially grant funded, but we're assuming bond funding with the payment coming from the stormwater utility fund.
Okay. And there aren't any expenditures further out from that, 31, 32, 33, but I know that this is a, long-term project. Is it just that it's too speculative at this point, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's one
What?
of those, like, we applied for the Protect grant, and if we got those monies, like, we would start building, probably you guys would prioritize the various straws into the project and keep spending, right, as money became available, and we'll always be pursuing grants, and it's, to your answer, or to your point, yes, it was probably too speculative to start really nailing down other projects now.
And if those 3 years are fully bond funded, then you're talking a 15-year out before we can,
Rebond, yeah.
Up the bonds?
without any.
Or without
contributions.
alternatively raising the stormwater utility to create another set of revenue streams. Yeah.
So just the amounts that are on here, we think that'll get us to Moffett Road, we think that'll get us all the way downtown. I'm just trying to
So the-
picture what this means, right?
The 28, 29, 30 numbers, that adds
Yeah,
up to
yeah.
10 million. That will get us somewhere around Evanston,
Okay.
maybe
Up
plus or minus
North
a few
Avenue.
hundred feet.
Uh-huh.
The state has said they would fund everything in their right of way, which would get us, to Sheridan and East North. So there's a block or two. There's
Okay.
several $1 million.
Get out there with
in that gap.
shovels at that point.
WPA.
Or is that where it's 30 feet underground? Maybe we don't want to
Definitely
commit.
30 feet is a tunneling machine that you need. for that.
Yeah, we won't be doing that with
It
shovels.
makes the most sense to try to do as much of that at one time as you can, because once they mobilize the equipment to do that, that's a big cost, just getting the equipment here. So hopefully we can get the money put together. to
All
kinda-
kidding aside, that's from Evanston to Sheridan, or
No, from.
where
so
is the
our-
tunneling machine needed?
Right when we get to Moffett, which is our current project,
Uh-huh.
we're planning, but that's kind of where it breaks to where it's more economical to tunnel.
I see,
From that point west.
I see. Good to know. So it would make sense to continue going beyond Evanston, because you have the tunneling machine.
Ideally, we
All right.
have a little while to try to, we have other grants we're going to be applying for and always looking for money to try to put that together in one piece.
Interesting, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm
You're doing an awesome
I'm going
job.
through this.
Keep going.
The Green Bay Road, we've talked about that for a long time. The budget has 3 years, 26, 27, 28. Why, we're not going to be under construction for 3 years. Why is it spread out like that?
It's 2 years of construction, but there's a lot of engineering to happen in '26. We are still trying to get cleared from the historical people in Springfield about the trusses. That's supposed to come very soon, but.
The existing bridge structure,
there
they
are-
view as
Yeah,
a historic structure.
Are you in the position to
Underappreciated.
save it, or are we going to?
no, it's,
It's been saved
what
once
you see,
before.
those steel trusses were the original bridge, and when they did this bridge in the '80s, they put the bottom
In
foot of them
concrete.
in concrete.
Yeah.
And we're trying to convince the State Historical Office that it is impractical to chip all that concrete off of those trusses and try to reuse them. They also limit our sidewalk width, so we can't have a proper width of a sidewalk. I don't know if you've ever walked over that now on the wood planks, but there's a very narrow piece there trying to get around that ironwork. So we've made that case to them, and we're waiting for them to, on high, come down and agree or disagree. Or they might ask for us to do some other way in our project to honor those structures, but that is a memo we've been waiting for a long time, and we know will come very soon.
I thought you were actually getting really close to have an answer from them.
I thought
Yes.
so too. I thought that in March. I've been trading voicemails with the state a little bit here, trying to see if we can cut to the actual person who's making this decision.
IDOT is on our side with this one.
They've been pushing,
Yeah,
but it's been
it's been too long.
too long,
And that is 75% grant?
roughly.
It's 80-20, but it's essentially 75-25 now.
Okay.
There are some expenses that are not
Covered.
fundable, so those are ours.
And the big picture is, from a design perspective, is we want to leave it like it is. Keep it a neighborhood road. The bridge, the goal is the ultimate design will look very similar to the Moffett Road Bridge, kind of the official bridge look like we've done, open, to nature and so forth. So that's the vision. And the deck will more or less, we're replacing the top part of the bridge. The vertical supports would remain.
Everything but the piers, yeah. The only real change is new crosswalks, just for pedestrian safety across.
Weren't we
Green Bay
thinking
Road.
about a bike lane at one point? Or am I imagining that? No.
Imagining that. The goal, yeah, we wanted to keep it as neighborhoody as it is.
Yeah,
Save as many trees.
I think
and
that's the right call.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. It's actually that place going south after the bridge, going to Bluff and Tennis Court, that street, is probably one of the most dangerous corner in Lake Bluff. I mean, because cars go there is Green Bay, and then people come and zipping around the corner, try to get to the stop sign, and then continuing. So if you happen to cross, people focus on the street and not on the pedestrian. Do we have you guys noticed that? Is that a report?
I know that there's a sight distance issue there, but we can't really solve that with the elevation of the bridge. So when you stop there, you're looking, as you're saying, that for traffic, from the south, you can see very well, but people coming over the bridge, you don't see as well. That is something that the elevations are going to end up the same by the nature of our project. I don't think we've had a crosswalk plan for that location, but it's something we'll revisit the plans, and if there's one warranted. One issue with that might be if people are coming over the bridge and they can't see the crosswalk because the bridge pitches up and down, that is something we have to be careful about.
Yeah. If there's something we could look at a little bit more, because I'm a runner, so I run, this is my route to go toward, make a big loop, and many times I've had running around Green Bay, cars coming on my left side from a Lake Bluff neighborhood, and really not stopping. If there's anything we can do to.
We have the crosswalk planned at Witchwood, so over by
it's not
Stonebridge.
Witchwood, this is
Yeah.
Bluff and
And you're on the
Tennis.
other side of the bridge, but there is going to be one at least, within.
Jeff, I don't know if
a
you could
certain
put like a
distance.
bulb there or like a bump out or something to more of a pedestrian protective zone there with a barrier curb. I don't know. We can
It's-
look at it. It's tight.
The street is so narrow that that's
Tight,
generally
yeah.
not what they would recommend because you only have the 2 lanes to begin with.
And it drops off too. It's like slope drops.
Yep.
But that's something we can talk to our consultant about.
Is a flashing light warranted?
Well, there is a split rail there, and there's a lot of vegetation that'll we can probably clean some of that up and maybe clean some of that clit line of sight better as part of the project. Because there's some things that he said that just you can't cure it. There's just not enough space.
No, I hear you, but it's one of his spots in Lake Bluff that is, it's prone to
It's hard to look around. I know where you're. Yeah.
prone to little attention from people.
And one of the things, I think when we looked at where to put crosswalks originally is there really isn't a real reason to cross the street. That's why I was talking about the Witchwood crossing, because, to go on the west side of the street, like there's no destination right at that spot. So going north or south into a regular crosswalk a little ways away doesn't seem like it's out of most people's way. But like I said, we can relook at that.
Yeah, no, what I was talking about was the crosswalk going southward.
That's what I was going to
Oh.
ask to clarify. You just mean
Okay.
crossing over Bath and Tennis.
Correct.
Heading south on Green Bay
Right.
Road.
Yep, I did not catch that.
And not
I-
crossing Green Bay Road.
I thought you were
Right.
talking Green Bay
But,
Road.
That-
That's what I was talking about, too. You
The
didn't get
other-
that?
yeah.
No, I'm sitting here trying to visualize what you're talking about. Now it makes,
Because the
I
problem,
was following you, Regis, because.
I was too, but I thought you were following.
No, I was not following that up. I think there is
Into that
going to be
neighborhood?
one there.
It is, I've seen it before where, and I think I've even turned, there's something about coming over the bridge, heading south, where you're just not,
I don't know what the pattern is, but if
Yes.
you walk, you go south on the east side of and you're trying to continue on that street
Yeah.
just after the bridge, people are just not paying attention and they don't see you.
I think they're thinking of, I think drivers are thinking about the bridge itself and automobile traffic and are not thinking about pedestrian traffic.
Correct.
I have definitely noticed that.
I believe that is to be striped. We are moving a lot of the crosswalks on the north and south side streets more towards the street from where they are now, so it's safer. Those sidewalks will come down to the street and over. But I think that what you're talking about will be striped as far as additional signage to
Cool.
make it safety. We'll have to look into that.
I think it needs to be more obvious to drivers that, no, you're about to cross a place where pedestrians are present. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm gonna keep rolling. The CBD Block 1, To me, that one, and I think there's a grant, so there's $1 million in there.
Yeah.
But we're hoping for a grant that would reduce that substantially, right?
Yes.
Okay. My opinion is that we leave that in here, however, that this board is going to want to discuss that at some point in depth, and the right time to do that's probably not now, but when we have a diagram up there and a reminder of the work that needs to get done regardless, and then talk about what role it's going to play for the community. I mean, I did see in the ranking, it's ranked pretty high because it provides a really good quality of life element for the community, but I think we'll want to have a discussion at some point about that.
And we were
So are you guys
expecting-
okay to leave that in for now, pending a discussion?
That's exactly what Drew and I talked about, that by review of this and not reducing it at this point, we're not necessarily approving that that money be spent there. It's in order to enable it, should we be able to do it, should the stars align?
Yeah.
If they don't, we may be doing the bare minimum, which is substantially less, but still not, still quite a bit of money.
Right.
Yeah, by the time you meeting it in April, we're hoping to have an answer on that grant. I was told it was close, but until they don't have a date that they set to release, it's just going to come out one day, but it could come out
Maybe
any
it would
day
be
now.
worth it, even at that meeting, if we don't have an answer, to, again, run through that diagram and
The
talk about.
project scope, yeah.
Project scope, yeah.
And Jeff, the high level, the work that has to, the sidewalk, the road work, something's gonna have to happen within 24 months, right? I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
the sidewalk is getting more and more cracked in the roadway. We've been patching it, but it's bad.
yeah, okay.
I didn't have any questions on the remainder of these. You guys can chime in, but I did want to ask if there was anything that we left off just because it didn't make the cut, or, oh, go ahead, sorry.
So one thing I wanted to say about block one, yes, I mean, we could delay that expense. I mean, we have many things that are concurrent to that expense. But again, we want Lake Bluff to be a destination community. It's one of the focal points in Lake Bluff, and we really cannot leave cracked sidewalks and a place that is in disrepair where people would head first into town. And so I would really like to put some priority to, let's finish it. Okay, let's get it done, because we will get the money from someone else by people visiting us. I think this is actually more important than, okay, we can live at this repair for the next 24 months. That's my feeling.
I'm not really even going to comment because I really want to save my comments in the context of looking at the broader plan.
Okay, I'm good with that too.
I think I think that's fair. It's a large number. I want to hear what community feedback has been. I think that's part of Teska's review. So I think this is a larger subject. What I wanted to confirm, what you confirmed for me, is that today we're not saying, yes, we're ready to spend $1 million on this. We're saying, let's make sure that the money is there so that if the stars align and we can do this project, we are able to do it without pulling money from an ongoing project that we're also planning for. So with that in mind, I think, continuing to review this as that being the parameters we understand makes sense, and understand that Regis has a point of view and I want curbs on my street. So there's always give and take.
You have a lake view, what do you need? For?
I know.
Thank
I've
you.
got ruts in my lawn, your lawn, right now. But anyway, I'm joking. It's just give and take that we have to continue to evaluate. And certainly fixing the cracks, I think everybody agrees we need to do. If there's a way to spend some additional money over that and get something spectacular, let's do it. But I just want to make sure that the finance committee isn't now making recommendations to the entire board. Yes, we're ready to do
Right.
this.
Yeah.
And not that you want more, I guess, to chew on with that, but right now, there has been a conversation with the Garden Club and others to try to put the dance statue back. It used to be on the corner in front of Anavasi that the Garden Club installed. So right now, we're looking at the Block 1 to be inclusive of that project and put it at the train station where the artist and the garden club has decided that's where they'd like it put back. So right now, we're kind of viewing that as grouped together because it's such similar work. You would do it all at the same time, and that's about $50,000.
Was that in the middle of the planter?
It was.
Okay.
So right now, we could do all that work. It's all the same materials, all the same, so that's right. We're grouping that together right now. So when we say Block 1, it's inclusive of that effort. So,
Yeah, it would be good to get that statue back.
so I think that's the capital.
Any other comments on that, on the capital plan for now? Okay, lots to cover yet in 21 minutes. So moving next to the pay plan, which is item 4C, review of the pay plan. There's a memo there dated March 4th describing this, and then an extensive document that is the official pay plan drafted for May 25th. Bettina or Drew, do you have anything
No,
you'd
yeah,
like to
for the
talk
sake
about?
of time, we think there's a great opportunity to do a slight organizational modification and upgrade and transition from an administrative secretary role to a management analyst, and for a minimal investment, and really elevate some of the work that we're doing and support the department heads. And we just think that's a great opportunity and hate to miss it for such a nominal investment. And that's really long and short of it. And other than some other market adjustments, it's to the pay ranges, but with no actual, so that's usual.
Yeah, and Drew, I thought it was important to establish the pay ranges are changing, more than inflation, but pay raises for the fiscal year, it doesn't mean that we're taking salaries up. It's going to continue to be on mostly.
Case by case, yes. Yep. Yep.
These ranges are just purely, they are the range that an employee could live in, but they are for marketing and hiring purposes, that we remain current in the market.
Which we have to advertise now.
Which, as
you
of
do.
January 1, we
Yep.
have to advertise.
Oh, really?
And
That's
Beth.
that's a change?
Illinois.
Interesting. I didn't have any other comments on this at
Okay.
all. Looked reasonable.
And my only comment is the identity of the communities that we cite in the pay plan as comparables, all fine communities. And perhaps the numbers is plenty, and we don't need additional, but I know in other circumstances, we've also looked at, for example, Highwood and Bannockburn and other communities that maybe are a little smaller than some of these. So Drew and I talked about that. We're going to continue to think about it.
Yep. Are there any other questions? Water fund.
Okay, item 4D, review of the water fund budget and rate analysis. It's in your packet. If I can get there.
Again, we've kind of hinted about this, the idea that the village, going back to when the village has set up the stormwater utility fund, the village had a steady stream investment in assets. This is an area which we need to be doing more, and as we dig down and deal with more and more water main breaks, the break fix approach, and the regulatory environment changing, we need to be in a position where we should shift the average age of our infrastructure. In order to do that, it's going to require a larger investment. In order to do that, a more, I guess, larger rate increase than we've done historically. At the same time, nobody likes to recommend raising rates. At the same time, it's still not a lot of money for this commodity, and it's a miracle that water is that inexpensive. But nonetheless, here we are. And so I think what we presented is a couple of different options, and staff is recommending a more aggressive initial increase, and then do a study, a more comprehensive study that we've kind of talked about doing for a number of years. And we didn't bring you an exact study scope from a specific consultant because we're still working with our consultant to try to get the scope of work that we prefer, which is both looking at our infrastructure needs as well as we've been doing the rate side of things pretty well, but we want to bring in really a harder look at our infrastructure and also trying to close that gap and some of that water loss we've been dealing with, and really try to move the needle of our infrastructure in terms of making it a younger network. So that's kind of a high-level overview, but, and there's a lot, I guess, a multitude of solutions within that set, but that's kind of the general take.
Was the recommendation a 5% increase?
5% initial, and
Yeah,
then it
okay.
would level off to 2.5.
on the
but
out years.
That could change, but that's initial splash to get us in the right direction to investing at a higher level.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, to me, and, you know, every single dollar for the residents of Lake Bluff is important. But the 5% in real dollars, it's a pizza from Ferentino's, right? It's not going to create a hardship for anybody, and it keeps this fund solvent, and it seemed like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, my only question was whether we then go from the 5% one time back down to 2.5, or it's, or we need to have something sustained, 4% sustained, for example, or, but I'm in agreement that we start with the 5% and then we evaluate whether it's advisable to go back down to where we have been historically, 2.5, given the water rates that'll be charged to us by
Others,
Jawa, right?
and the cost of the infrastructure, yeah.
Right. So it seems to me the 5% this year is called for, and we need to reevaluate thereafter.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, any other questions on item 4D then? Okay, item 4E, review of stormwater fund. There's a memo in the file dated March 7th regarding this. Remind me when we started collecting that. Has that been 2 years now? When did we start collecting that?
July of '23?
So it will be 2 years in July, yeah. So 2 years or 18 months on, 20 months on, what have we learned?
Well, we have learned that we are still chasing other money to help really fund this project, the deep tunnel and all the straws, and that I think we've learned that people have used the system that's been designed. People who've have now, asked for credits, and those are being awarded as anticipated. I think the plan that we are working makes sense for the resources we have available. And I don't know that, I think we're on track, and the money we've got, that fund balance that's going to help us do what we want to do in the timeframe, the near term, and then we'll have sufficient funds, I think, to borrow and use to do the debt service as planned. I think the plan is working as we anticipated.
Right. And what I just really wanted to point out with this budget, I mean, there's not much here other than the storm trunk project that we have bookmarked with the 3.9, is the capital contribution, that coming from general.
Yep.
And knowing that return grant money will return to general.
Yep.
Because it's a capital contribution to an enterprise fund. So it's really more to just bookmark those events in this budget.
Yeah, and that's just because there was a change in the way the accounting was going to be done for the grant, right?
Right, exactly. Initially, we thought there'd be upfront funding,
Yeah.
and now it's reimbursable,
I remember that conversation.
different cash flow.
I don't have any other questions on that, Susan.
Okay, well, we had 21 minutes and now we have 13, so
We do have a staff report.
staff
but-
report, so let's turn to,
However,
for
before
a
that,
13-minute staff report.
ideally, there would be a recommendation to approve the budget as presented to the village board, which will go at its first meeting in April.
So do I have,
We've covered everything,
we need a motion? for that?
operations, capital, yes, ma'am.
A motion to recommend the budget as written, as reviewed today, to the full board.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye?
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Great, thank you. And then the staff update, Bettina has an update regarding one of our service providers.
So staff updates related to audit. In the next week or so, we'll be pushing out a RFP for auditing services. Hopefully we'll get a good number of responses to compare services and cost as well, and come back with a referral or recommendation for the finance committee. And that's really just to update you on the process that we're in.
We've been with Sikich
15 years,
15 years.
at least.
So as I understand it, they're sort of the gold standard in this area. Is, in corporate America, there's oftentimes a kind of recommendation that you change auditors from time to time. Does that exist in municipal?
Does.
It does.
And the village has when I first came to the village, we were using,
I don't know.
oh my gosh, they were in Deerfield. Help me out.
Sorry, I don't know.
Back when there were more
Somebody
than, more
else.
than four at the time. But anyway, somebody else. And anyway, the village went to, for that reason, to get a different set of eyes on things, switched, and then made the decision every 5 years or so over the last several years to say, let's switch partners in the group to have a different set of eyes within
see.
Sikich. Because of the relationship, it made sense. We liked the quality of work, and the pricing seemed fair. And in the meantime, there's been fewer and fewer players in the marketplace. So that's kind of where we are now. But I think it's been a long run, and we're going to ask for Sikich to give us a proposal.
Sure.
And we hope they will. So
So this is not driven by an interest in moving firms, but it's a possibility.
It's a possibility. And it's driven to get information and to see where we're at in the market.
See where we are in the market.
And we have a relationship with one of the potential Lauterbach and Amon does work for us, and they could be a party that submits, and so we'd maybe have to deal with that, maybe not.
If they were our auditor, could they also be our provider?
So typically, I mean, their partner, Jamie Welke, will sign off and have a separate audit team review the audit and do those services when they are also doing our accounting work. I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
I would not recommend it.
But it's possible.
But it's
People
possible.
have done it.
People have done it. It's possible. I would prefer not.
Yeah. Okay, well, that will be interesting. When do we anticipate getting RFP responses?
So I think we're looking at April 18th as the return date.
So we'll review it
So
in May.
Sometime by May, because we'd be looking at July to start the process again. So we need to have an auditing firm in place by then.
Okay. Any other staff reports?
That's
That was
it.
Any interest in any trustee making a report or otherwise? All right, hearing none, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the Finance Committee is adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for the
Nice.
questions.
Nice.
Take a page. You got a quick second?
How you doing? Looking forward to you doing your song and dance. Do you? Yeah.